be talking, man. Canelo a big dude, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I believe in my abilities. He's not he's a heavy dude, but he's not a big guy. Like he's 5'8", I'm 5'8", you know what I mean?
Good long
My arm's longer than his, you know.
The likelihood of a fight with you and Terence Crawford, it would be one of the biggest in boxing.
We don't talking about yet about the fight. Me and Turkarash know each other, and then we wanna see what happened.
And when do you want to get out next?
1 minute, we're all gearing up for one of the biggest fights in boxing history. Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford legacy on the line. Titles at stake. This was gonna be huge. Then, just like that, the whole thing collapses. No press conference, no face-offs, no hype videos, just dead silence. And then, the fight is officially off the table. But why? What went wrong? Was it the weight, the money, the egos? Or plot twist? Was it Jake Paul sneaking his way into the mix? Yeah, you heard that right. The YouTube boxer turned pro fighter is suddenly being talked about as Canelo's next opponent. And let's just say, not everyone's happy about it. So let's break this whole thing down. Why this fight was such a big deal, why it fell apart, and what's next for both Canelo and Crawford. Let's dive in. Alright, let's rewind for a second. How did this fight even become a thing? For starters, every boxing fan has dream matchups they want to see, fantasy fights that seem almost too good to be true. And for the past year or so, one of the biggest what-if showdowns people have been buzzing about is Canelo versus Crawford. On one side, you've got Saul Canelo Alvarez, the undisputed super middleweight king, a man who has collected belts like Thanos collected Infinity Stones. He's ruled the 168-pound division with an iron fist, taking down every challenger who's stepped up. He's beaten Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, you name it. He's the face of boxing, and whether you love him or not, you cannot deny his dominance. Then, on the other side, you've got Terence "Bud" Crawford, a fighter so slick, so versatile, that he's made some of the best in his division look helpless. Crawford has been tearing through opponents at 147 pounds, and after becoming the undisputed welterweight champ, he moved up to 154, taking out Jermell Charlo's twin brother, Jermall, without breaking a sweat. Both fighters are in their own lanes, dominating different weight classes, but boxing fans, they love a challenge. They started asking the question, what if Crawford moved up and fought Canelo? And just like that, the idea picked up steam. But here's the thing, big fights don't just happen because fans want them. There has to be serious money involved. That's where Turki Alalshik enters the picture. If you don't know who he is, let me put it this way. He's the Saudi billionaire who's been out here making boxing fans' dreams come true. He's the guy who put together Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou, and even tried to set up Deontay Wilder versus Andy Ruiz. He's basically playing fantasy boxing matchmaker, except with real money. According to reports, Alalshik wanted Canelo versus Crawford as his next big fight for 2025. The venue? Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. A 65,000 seat monster arena. The stakes? Undisputed champion versus undisputed champion. Two of the best pound for pound fighters of this era. Sounds amazing, right? Well, here's where things got complicated. Crawford was willing to take the fight, but there was a huge catch. He had to jump up 2 weight classes to face Canelo. Now, let's put that into perspective. Most fighters move up 1 division at a time. Even that can be a struggle, but moving from 154 to 168, that's 14 pounds of difference. That might not sound like much, but in the world of boxing, that's like going from lightweight to middleweight overnight. And Canelo, he's not just a regular 168-pound fighter. He's one of the strongest, hardest-hitting guys in the division. He's built like a tank. The last guy who tried moving up to fight him, Sergey Kovalev, got flattened. So yeah, this was always going to be a massive risk for Crawford, but guess what? Fans were hyped. Crawford thrives on proving people wrong. People doubted him against Errol Spence, and he destroyed him. If anyone could pull off this kind of jump, it was Bud. The buzz was real. The hype was growing. Until suddenly, everything just fell apart. Now, here's where things get messy. Nobody's giving an official reason for why this fight got scrapped. No press conferences, no formal statements, just radio silence. But let's be honest, boxing politics are always at play. Fights like these don't just fall apart because of one small issue. It's usually a mix of different problems behind the scenes. And from everything we know, there are 4 big reasons why Canelo vs. Crawford never made it to reality. Let's start with the biggest hurdle, the weight difference. Moving up 1 weight class is already tough for most fighters. Moving up 2, that's borderline crazy. It's not just about putting on pounds. It's about keeping your speed, stamina, and reflexes intact while dealing with much bigger, stronger opponents. Crawford is a natural welterweight. He's dominated at 147 pounds and recently moved up to 154. A small step up, but still manageable. But 168? That's a whole different world. To make this work, Crawford wouldn't just need to gain weight. He'd need to gain muscle while still keeping the slick movement and sharp reflexes that make him special. And then there's Canelo. This isn't some random 168 pounder we're talking about. Canelo has been bulldozing guys at this weight for years. Caleb Plant stopped him. Billy Joe Saunders broke his face. Callum Smith left his arm nearly unusable. Canelo is used to fighting big, powerful opponents who can take a punch and dish it right back. And Crawford, he would have been entering the ring against someone naturally stronger, heavier, and built for this division. Sure, Crawford is an incredible fighter, but moving up that much in weight against a guy like Canelo, that's a risk most wouldn't take lightly. This is boxing. At the end of the day, money always talks. And when it comes to drawing power, Canelo is the biggest star in the sport right now. His fights sell out massive arenas. His pay-per-views do crazy numbers. He's been at the top for over a decade. Crawford is arguably the most skilled boxer in the world today, but commercially, he's not at Canelo's level. That's just the reality. Even boxer Amir Khan advised Crawford to not fight Canelo.
I don't think that should happen. Look, I like Crawford, and I think Canelo is a beast that way. Honestly, I would advise Crawford not to do that.
So when it came to negotiating who gets what share of the money, things probably got tricky. Crawford, as an undisputed champion, likely felt he deserved an equal cut, but from Canelo's side, that probably wasn't happening. Canelo has fought some of the biggest names in the sport, Mayweather, Golovkin, Kovalev, and has always been the A side in negotiations. If Crawford wanted too much of the pie, that could have easily killed the fight before it even got started. Here's something a lot of people forget. Canelo doesn't need Crawford. Yes, it would have been an amazing fight for hardcore fans, but for Canelo, it might not have been worth the risk at this stage of his career. Think about it. Like, Canelo is in his prime, but he's also at a point where every fight is a calculated decision. He's not just fighting for legacy anymore. He's fighting to keep his throne at 168 pounds. Right now, there are still plenty of big fights available in his own division. Guys like David Benavidez, Dimitri Bivol, and even Jermall Charlo could bring in huge paydays without the weird weight difference. Another overlooked factor? Fight styles.
I could compare like with the Canelo, yeah? He put all his energy, all his power on single punch.
Yeah, Canelo.
And yeah, maybe single punch sometimes he's harder. Canelo, yeah, than Better Beef.
No way.
Because Better Beef didn't
like
do like
Kovalev.
yeah, Better Beef was more like close and
compact.
compact.
Canelo's best fights are against guys who come forward, stand their ground, and trade punches. That's why his battles with Gennady Golovkin were instant classics. But Crawford is a technical genius. He's a master at controlling distance, switching stances, making opponents miss, and picking them apart. That's great for winning fights, but for entertainment, it might not have been the kind of war that casual fans love to see, and we all know entertainment sells. And if there's one thing we know about big money fights, it's that boxing politics love action-packed wars, not strategic chess matches. Another wild turn of events in this story is Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned boxer who is now one of the biggest names in the sport, at least when it comes to getting attention. And if the reports are true, Canelo might actually fight him in May. For hardcore boxing fans, this sounds like a nightmare. You've got Canelo, a 4-division world champion and one of the greatest fighters of his era, potentially sharing the ring with a guy who built his boxing career beating ex-UFC fighters and retired athletes. On paper, it's not even close to a fair fight, but when you step back and look at it from a business perspective, it actually makes a lot of sense. When asked about the fight, Terence Crawford stays tight-lipped. He doesn't confirm or deny anything and simply says he has nothing to share with the press.
You good? Thank you. All right. You gotta give us something on Canelo, bud. Something. September? Done deal? Anything.
I never say no to business. So if it is a business.
Meanwhile, in a separate interview, Canelo gives a slightly different perspective. He emphasizes that he's always open to business opportunities. He's not quick to turn down any deal if it makes sense financially. His approach shows that while he's not ready to make an official statement on the fight, he's willing to listen and consider it if the right terms come his way. So judging from this, a fight with Jake makes sense.
Me versus Canelo is a very good fight. I'm the bigger man. I have the longer reach. Look who he lost to, Dimitri Bivol, a bigger man, 6 foot.
If you and Jake fought, how long would it last?
Not that long.
Would you play with him a little bit? Would you carry him a little bit first?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Let's break it down. First off, Jake Paul's audience is massive. We're talking millions of subscribers on YouTube, millions of followers on Instagram. He's got reach. And unlike a typical boxing match, where the audience is mostly diehard fans, a fight with Jake Paul brings in casual viewers, people who wouldn't normally tune in for a boxing event but will watch just to see what happens. The fight with Mike Tyson is proof of that.
If Jake Paul wasn't Jake Paul, if he wasn't this YouTube guy, he was just a boxer, and you see a boxer knock out the former UFC welterweight champion, not just the former, but one of the best ever. I don't think that power carries quite as much with those bigger guys. It's a little bit of a step. It's a step up, you know, like that there's very few guys that keep that power.
And let's be honest, this would be a much easier fight for Canelo. Crawford would have been a real challenge. He's fast, technical, and incredibly skilled. But Jake Paul, he's not on that level. Sure, he's been training hard and has improved over the years, but there's a world of difference between fighting Anderson Silva or Nate Diaz and stepping in the ring with someone like Canelo. For Canelo, this would be low risk, high reward. He wouldn't have to worry about a complicated training camp, a grueling weight cut, or a tricky style matchup. Instead, he could take a fight that's almost guaranteed to make huge money, all while facing an opponent who doesn't pose nearly the same level of danger as a top-ranked contender. Now, of course, the backlash would be huge. Boxing purists would hate it. They'd call it a cash grab, a joke, a waste of time. And they wouldn't be wrong. This fight wouldn't prove anything about Canelo's skills. For Terence Crawford, the collapse of a potential showdown with Canelo Alvarez is a devastating blow. Crawford, a boxer who's been consistently regarded as one of the most technically skilled fighters of his generation, is now facing the reality that time is running out. At 37 years old, Crawford is nearing the tail end of his career, and opportunities for a career-defining payday like the one he could have earned from fighting Canelo are becoming fewer and farther between. A fight with Canelo would have not only provided a massive payday, but also elevated Crawford's legacy as a true champion. Now that this opportunity is gone, Crawford's future looks uncertain. Without the Canelo fight, Crawford's options are somewhat limited, especially considering his age. One potential matchup that comes up is a fight with David Benavidez, short. But that's a risky one. Benavidez is an incredibly dangerous opponent, and although the fight has appeal, the reward might not be enough to justify the risk for Crawford. Benavidez is a rising star, and while a win over him could boost Crawford's standing, it's far from guaranteed. Another option is a fight with Jermell Charlo, but that doesn't carry the same level of excitement or legacy significance. Fans were hoping for the fireworks that would come with Crawford versus Canelo, and Charlo doesn't create that same level of buzz. It's a fight that would definitely sell, but it wouldn't hit the same high notes that a Canelo fight would have. Canelo Alvarez also has several exciting options ahead, and his next move will depend on a mix of legacy, business, and timing. There's the much anticipated fight with David Benavidez. Fans have been waiting for this match, and it's an important one for Canelo's legacy. Benavidez is undefeated and a dangerous opponent, so beating him would add another huge win to Canelo's career. However, it's a much riskier fight compared to Jake Paul, and the rewards may not be immediate.
Artur Beterbiev is a beast. Here he is block pressing 140 kgs or 310 pounds. Is there any boxer that can...
Another option is a fight with Artur Beterbiev, a light heavyweight champion. This would be a tough challenge at 175 pounds, and it could boost Canelo's legacy even more. Beterbiev is known for his powerful punches, making this a high-risk, high-reward fight for Canelo. It would push Canelo to his limits, but it also carries risks. With these options on the table, Canelo has many choices. While fans might want him to take on a challenge like Benavidez or Beterbiev, the easy money from a fight with Jake Paul is hard to ignore. The failed Canelo versus Crawford fight, along with the possibility of Canelo facing Jake Paul, shows that boxing is changing. For years, boxing has been about legacy, where the best fighters compete for the title of the greatest. But now, with celebrity boxing becoming more popular and making a lot of money, we're seeing a shift towards entertainment over pure competition. More and more, boxing seems to be about business-savvy fights that attract large audiences, rather than just matching the best against the best. A fight between Canelo and Jake Paul is a perfect example of this change. It's not the fight hardcore boxing fans want, but it's the fight that will likely bring in the most money and attention. So there you have it, Canelo versus Crawford off the table. Canelo versus Jake Paul? Looks like it's happening. What's your take on this? Should Canelo have fought Crawford instead? Has boxing become all about the money? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay updated.